And welcome back to Big South Virtual Media Day as we wrap up this afternoon with our final team, High Point University. And we begin with the head coach of the women's squad, second-year head coach Chelsea Banbury, who is joined with junior guard Skyler Corrine, who is our women's preseason player of the year. First, Coach Banbury, welcome in. Let's take us through how preseason prep is going for you.
Thanks for having us. Preseason, it's nice now. I think we're kind of getting back to some sort of normalcy within practice. This summer is very different for all of us from what we're used to. We spent the whole summer that we were here in the first few weeks of school not being able to share equipment. So when you're playing a team sport and you can't even pass to each other, you do have to get creative with what you're doing in workouts and stuff. And so our approach was just to get as good individually as we could in that time, whether it's better ball handlers, passers, shooters. We worked a lot on skill development. And I do think it is paying off now that we're in the gym as a team. We're able to play and have everybody in there at once and actually pass to each other. I'm excited for what I'm seeing right now. So.
Thank you, Coach. Let's welcome in your junior guard, Skyler Corrine, preseason player of the year. First off, congratulations, Skyler. What does this, what does the honor mean to you? What was your reaction when you found out that you received this honor?
I was actually a little bit surprised. I haven't really thought about it much at all this preseason. We've just been locked into each other, but I mean, it is a great honor, and but it doesn't mean that I don't still have things to work on and get better at. We're on a mission this year, and I just want to be prepared for everything that everyone's going to throw at us. So thank y'all, but there's still a lot of work to do.
But with that, you're transitioning to the preseason preparations. From your perspective as a student athlete, your coach alluded to some of those, but how has it been dealing with it and addressing it from your standpoint?
It's been different for sure. We've had to adjust a lot, just even with the equipment, but even off the court and out of the classroom. Just like having to stay kind of with each other, like not being able to really socialize and do things that we usually do. So as you said, like a student athlete standpoint, it's been a lot different. Ever since we have been able to share stuff, it's kind of come to this like normalcy a little bit, where we're kind of back onto like a routine, and we can do things that we used to always be able to do. But I mean, we're not the only ones that have gone through this adjustment. So we're all working with new things and different protocols and stuff.
We're going to start taking questions for both Coach Banbury and Skyler. Please enter your name in the Zoom chat box. We'll take the questions as they come in, and we'll first start with Brock Bowling. Go ahead, Brock.
Hey, Chelsea. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us here today. You had a successful season last year, winning record, especially in Big South play, 14-6. How did you feel about your first year, and what are you most excited about here with the program in year two?
I was very happy with how we finished the year. I thought we were playing really good basketball at the end of the season. We had a lot of strong play from a lot of different individuals, and I think that led to Sky getting preseason player of the year this year. But last year it was a lot of learning, whether it was the players learning a new system, they're learning my terminology, they're learning how I want to play, but then they're also learning about me, just how I coach, what do they need to react to. And at the same time, I'm trying to learn about them and how they respond to coaching, what works for them. So last year was a lot of back and forth, just trying to figure each other out and feel everything out. And it ended up working out. At the beginning of the year was rough. I don't think any of us were having fun. When you're losing, that's not very much fun. But I was very proud that the team stuck with it. They believed in me. They believed in what we wanted to do. And at the end of the year, it paid off. Like I said, I do think we were playing very good basketball. And then this year, I've been happy that our returners are just getting more competitive in practice, and I'm excited because I feel like we're much farther along this year at this point than we were last year. So I'm encouraged by that, and I'm excited to see what we can do once we're able to play other competition. So I'm very excited for going.
And Skyler, I have a question for you. You said you still had some things to work on in your game for this upcoming season. What would that be?
I mean, everything. I haven't perfected anything yet. So just being able to do things and involving everybody. It's not just going to be me. We have a team of 13, 14 people that can play basketball. So, I mean, I'm just excited to be able to get out there and actually play basketball games. Like she said, we were playing really good basketball at the end of the season last year, and we kind of felt like we got something taken from us in a sense. And so we've just been working ever since we had the chance to be back and be here together. So, I mean, everything's working. Everybody's working on something new. I wouldn't say that I have something that I need to work on more than anything else, because everything can get better.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brock. We'll now turn it over to Darren Vault with some questions. Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Coach, this is for you. I wonder to what extent you feel like you're in your first year again. And I mean that in the sense that with your first-year players, I mean, the ability to coach them has been a little bit more limited than usual, whereas you're just now sort of getting in a stride. Can you just describe what the process has been like getting your first-year players assimilated to the program?
Yeah, so it's definitely been different because I already touched on this, but it's been pushed back when we can start working on stuff. You couldn't do stuff this summer as much as a team, so we weren't getting into the basketball side of things or our system or what we wanted to do. But just having so many returners and them believe in what we're doing, it's moved the new players along faster this year than everybody did last year, if that makes sense. And we also recruited players that we thought would fit in, and we understand that it's a system that sometimes it takes either a very smart player to pick up or it takes longer. So we were trying to get players that could come in and they play a high-level IQ basketball. They think while they're on the court, and that's what we look for when we're recruiting too. So it's been a combination of our returners helping them along, and then also the new players coming in and making an effort to get better and listen and pick up and try to just learn something new every single day. So it's been a combination of both.
And if I may, Skyler, I'll follow up with you. What's that been like for you? Do you feel like now, I mean, you're more of an upperclassman now too, so I guess there's probably a little bit more responsibility in that regard. But do you feel like you're a little bit more involved in getting new players acclimated than you normally would be, or does it seem pretty normal?
No, for sure. I think I feel more involved. And at the beginning of the year when we first started to work on all things, and you could tell that they were just like, the newer people were just like flustered. Like, I like at the end of one of our practices, I was like, look, like we know how y'all feel. Like last year it was every single one of us, and this year like we have y'all three to work with. So it's definitely been kind of pulling people aside or like having people come to me with questions and things like that. But like she said, it's definitely a little bit easier this year, seeing as how we do kind of understand everything now, because it can be confusing. I mean, and like I told you, we can see the confusion on people's faces sometimes. And so we're just like, everyone just like take a breath and ask questions, because it's going to help in the end. But I think it's definitely probably a little bit easier this year than it was last year.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Coach, we got time for a few more questions. I'll throw one at you. Actually, I take that back. We're going to go to Brock Bowling first, then I'll wrap it up with one question.
Hey, Coach. Just like last year, this year in the Big South, a long 20-game conference schedule. A little different this year, back-to-back, home and away, when you're playing each other on the road as well as at home. How do you feel about that this year? What are the pros and cons do you see as you enter the season with that kind of a schedule?
I mean, and we addressed this as a team when we started, is we just have to be grateful for what we have. If we're expecting everything to be perfectly fair this season, I think you're being unrealistic about what's being thrown at us. So we talk about every day controlling. We're going to control us. So if we get a play, I don't care who it's against, we're going to play as hard as we can because that's the game that we can control. We don't need to worry about, oh, we didn't get to play this team or they're playing that team. We're going to show up and we're going to handle our business and worry about the things that we can control. The pros of it, and I think people have probably touched on this, is back-to-back games, there's less exposure each week to different people. So you're kind of minimizing the amount of people you're around each week. So I do like that. The cons are that it's a quick turnaround. With COVID and everything, if you go into a game and you're shorthanded, playing 2 games in essentially 26 hours could be tough. Maybe you have to adjust how you play. You can't play as fast. I'm not really sure how it's going to affect us at that point. So there are some cons there. And then obviously as coaches, when people get tired or worn down, you do worry about injuries. So then at that point, you adjust practices to kind of try to make up for it. So right now, the biggest concern is the safety and the health of our student athletes and our staff and everybody involved. So I do think it is the best approach that we can have. And like I said, we're going to show up. If we get to play a game, I'm grateful for it. We're going to show up and play that game. And hopefully we get to play the next game. And that's just going to be how we approach it. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brock. And Coach, we'll wrap up. Let's talk about the non-conference schedule. Who do you got? You got this coming up.
We open at North Carolina on the 29th. So we're excited about that. And then we'll play some other D1s in the area. I know we have Wofford on the schedule and North Carolina Central and some other teams. Liberty that used to be in the Big South, so that'll be fun. But, yeah, we're excited. We're just ready to, I think, to play somebody else and see where we're at. I know North Carolina is a big opponent, and it's just going to be cool going over there and playing. I know a lot of our girls being from North Carolina, I think that'll be a cool experience because I'm sure plenty of them grew up either a North Carolina fan or a Duke fan where we went last year. So it's a cool experience, and we're just excited to have the opportunity because I know a lot of us at some point were thinking, are we actually going to get to play? So we're going to take advantage of it. We're going to play hard, and we're going to have fun.
All right, well, Coach Skyler, that's all the time we have for you this afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Skyler, again, congrats on the preseason Player of the Honor. We wish you all the best of luck this season, and please stay safe and healthy, and we'll hope to see you down the road during the year.
Thanks, you too, Mark.
All right. We will now shift to the men's side with head coach Tubby Smith, as well as sophomore guard John Michael Wright, who was named to the preseason all-conference team earlier today. Coach Smith, good afternoon. Great to see you. Let's start with you. Let's kind of get into your opening thoughts on how preseason prep has been.
I'm sorry. How you doing? I was muted. And you were saying? I apologize.
No, we wanted to go ahead and get your thoughts on how the prep has been for the start of the year.
How the
preparations for
preparation. Okay. Well, it's been up and down. You can imagine with what everyone is dealing with in our society, not just in athletics, but in every phase of life. This virus has really changed the dynamics and changed the routine of so many people. And certainly our basketball team and program has taken its brunt of it with a few of our players missing practice because of COVID. It's been a struggle to get a complete team on the court over the last since we returned in August.
Thanks, Coach. And let's welcome in John Michael Wright, sophomore guard, preseason all-conference. John, thanks for joining us today. Just your reaction to being named to the preseason all-conference team, as well as your perspective on how it's been preparing for this upcoming season.
Hello, thank you guys for having me. I was pretty excited when I saw my name on the all-conference team. It's really an honor, to be recognized by the Big South with all those great other players on the list. As far as preseason, like Coach Smith said, it has been up and down. It's kind of hard to get in the rhythm because we'll practice and then COVID hits and then we'll have to take breaks and then we'll come back. So it's just been a little struggle just getting the rhythm, but I think we're doing the best we can with it and we should be ready when the season comes. But it has been up and down though.
Thank you, John. And we'll start taking questions for both Coach Tubby Smith and John Michael Wright. To do so, please enter your name in our Zoom group chat. We'll take those questions as they are entered. Before we do that, as we wait for those, John Michael, I'll continue with you. You were selected to represent to the NABC Player Development Coalition over the summer. Congratulations on that honor in representing college basketball in that regard. Can you tell us some of the details of that committee and maybe some of the things you've worked on to this point?
Well, the committee is basically just like a player correlation where the NCAA asks us how we feel about certain issues. For example, we talked about the name, image, and likeness things coming up in the upcoming season, and also playing the COVID-19 rules and stuff, how many games would we want to play, how many games wouldn't we want to play. It was different things that came up in the air, whether people would play in different bubbles, things like that. But it's just a voice that they give us players to talk to the committee about what the players actually want as far as their season. It's not just one-sided or just talked about between the board. It's actually talked about between the college athletes. So it's just a great opportunity for me and the people on the board to just be a voice for college basketball players.
Well, it's a 9-member group, and we're proud that you're representing High Point and the Big South Conference. So thank you for that. We'll go ahead and start taking some questions. We're going to start with Rod Baxley, who actually has a question for you, John Michael. So, Rod, go ahead.
Hey, John Michael. Just wondering, man, going into year 2, what are some of the biggest differences?
Can you repeat it? You broke up. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Just what are some of the biggest differences you've noticed in yourself on and off the court entering year?
One of the biggest differences is really just my mindset when it comes to practice and just trying to prepare for the games coming up. For example, last year, I was young, freshman. I kind of went in practice, kind of jokingly, not serious or as serious as I should have been. But this year, it's it's all about business because what happened last year, we don't want that to happen again. So for me, it's just been getting myself mentally prepared to go hard every day in practice, just put it all on the line on the court. Now, off the court, it's just been different because last year we didn't have Corona. So it's just a lot more rules we have to follow. We have to be careful. You got to carry your mask wherever you go. And it's different, but I'm handling it pretty well. And I think I'm prepared, for the season coming up mentally and physically, on and off the court.
Thanks, Rod. Our next question is from Eddie Hughes for both Coach and John Michael Wright. Go ahead, Eddie.
Hey, Coach. John Michael, you kind of touched on this, but I wanted to ask both of you this. Coach, what do you want to see from John Michael on the floor and that growth from his freshman to sophomore year? And John Michael, what are you going to do, or what do you hope to change on the floor as well from your freshman to sophomore year?
Well, good seeing you, Eddie. Appreciate you. That's from one of the biggest changes a player makes between his freshman and sophomore year, and certainly, but as John Michael mentioned earlier, with the change, it's all about attitude, effort, energy, and John Michael's always brought that from day one. He was one of our leaders as a freshman. He's gifted he's talented athletically, and he's talented as a leader. The players look up to him and they respect not just his ability to play the basketball game, and his knowledge of the game, but his willingness to set an example every day in practice. So, I expect him to pick up from where he left off last year and be even better, and because we're going to need him to lead us in a lot of ways, not just statistically, but also from a leadership standpoint.
John Michael, same question for you.
Well, on the court, I would like to pick up my defense. I was okay defender last year, but as far as like on ball and off ball, I really want to be an impact on defense. Like I want to be a guy that's everywhere at all the time, and just get havoc to my opposing player. But as far as like offensive things, I want to pick up where I left off. Try and excel in that. Really help get my teammates more involved, so we all can like grow together, and we all can just be one ship. Because if we're all clicking, especially with the new talent we got this year, we'll be a great team. So that's really one of the main factors, just getting everybody on board with one system and just playing freely, and just picking it off where we left last year.
Thanks, Eddie. We'll now turn it over to Darren Vaught with some questions.
Thanks, Mark. Tubby, this one's for you. And it's a big difference between the roster this season and last season, right? I mean, last season it was between 70 and 80% of your scoring was gone from the year prior. This year you've got a lot of returners. What can we expect to see out of anything schematically? Because I think it's safe to say when you're starting a lot of freshmen, sophomores, you're just kind of going with the flow and whatever they give you, right? And now you know your pieces a little bit better. Have you been able to, better create a dynamic that's maybe a little bit more appropriate for their skill sets?
Well, we alluded to it earlier. We really have only had 12 practices. You're allowed 30 practices in 42 days prior to your first game. Our first game is on the 25th of November. And so we have struggled to try to mesh, because we do have a very good group of young, talented freshmen, incoming freshmen. One is coming off of a broken wrist, broke his hand, had a pin put in it. Zach Austin, so he's finally in practice over the last few weeks and back on the court. We have, again, you mentioned we do have 3 starters back, and I think with John Michael Wright and Brian Randleman and Eric Coleman, we also have 2 sophomore starters that started for us at sophomore some last year. And that's Caden Sanchez and Rob Peterson. But we've recruited some players that are really pushing them for playing time, but we've got to get the experience, and that's why it's tough at this juncture, because we're not going to be able to play exhibition games. We're not going to have scrimmages. So it's going to be interesting to see how we can, unite, bring this team together as one in few practices. So that's going to be the toughest challenge for us. But I'm excited about our talent. I'm excited about this group, and I think we can be a very good team.
It's my only one for now. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Darren. All right, Mike Solarte, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Coach, for you, good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you.
You just kind of touched on it, the lack of exhibition games, and the Big South traditionally, annually, has those, you guys go big game hunting in the non-conference schedule, playing those Power Fives, and have put a lot of scares into teams, come away with some wins in a lot of situations. How does that kind of, I guess maybe from a coaching standpoint, how does that stunt the development of your guys a little bit, and not, when they're not going up against those big name schools and some of those burger kids, how does that kind of slow those guys down a little bit? But it's an even playing field for everybody this year as well.
It is. I don't think, there's not going to be much fair about this season as far as, because trying to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 is going to be a real challenge in our settings. We did play probably two of a competitive team because, but you put together a schedule a year or two ahead of time. So last year, I think Darren mentioned, we lost about 75% of our scoring. And we were expecting two or three of those guys return, but they transferred to other schools. So we had to start 3 freshmen and 2 sophomores that had never started a game in college basketball. And we had to go to Boston College, St. Louis. We had to go to Belmont, and we got our heads handed to us. And so I think it can work both ways. So I feel comfortable with where we are now. We would have had to go play Connecticut on the road and Southern Cal. These are games that we had to cancel. And then we would have had Liberty at home. So those were very competitive, tough teams. But now we're back in the same situation, almost where we were last year, in that we have, even though we have some more experience, we have experienced players that have competed in a tough schedule. But starting the season against Davidson on the road, which is picked to be one of the top teams in the Atlantic 10, is going to be a challenge. North Florida is one of the top teams in the Atlantic Sun year in and year out. So we'll be tested early, and we've got to go on the road to Eastern Kentucky, play Rich. So we've got another very tough schedule ahead of us. Elon on the road, one of our real rivals, next door neighbors. So, but what's missing are those games that give us a chance to make some mistakes and learn from each other and learn from those mistakes and correct them. So we have to do that in practice, and practices are starting to get pretty competitive, and that's going to make us better. So we're going to go at it that way and do more scrimmaging in practice as we have more practice.
And just kind of following up on that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Yeah, to make up for those lack of games that we're not going to be, and the scrimmages that we can't play. We're going to have to, and we're trying to do that in our practices now to put together teams that can really challenge each other.
And that was kind of leading to my follow-up. As the coaching staff and yourself, is that an initiative from you guys? Or has it been a nice surprise to the coaching staff that the players have kind of dialed it up a little bit more and wanted to get a little bit more competitive and turn it into, as close to a game situation as possible?
Well, I can see that they're hungry to get out and play. We've had some very spirited practices since we've returned. We were gone for 14 days. So, and when you do that in the middle of your training session, your training season, it can really stunt your growth to some degree. So we've been very basic. We have implemented a few offensive plays, and now we're moving to more breaking it down and putting in our zone defense. We still haven't put in a press offense yet, and a lot of things we haven't done. But I've seen our players, they've started to pick it up, and they've taken the initiative to say, hey, we have to step it up. We're behind. They know we're behind as far as our training is concerned, and they really, so we've actually gone to 2-a-days because of it.
Thanks very much, Coach. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mike. We'll take last call for questions for Coach Smith and John Michael Wright before we wrap up. I'm not seeing any come into the queue. Oh, Darren Volt. Go ahead, Darren.
Tubby, this one's for you. Given the nature of the conference schedule that we've just recently seen is going to be the case with the back-to-back games. I know you referenced when we were talking probably a couple of weeks ago that, I mean, you had never seen anything like that. And again, I commend the conference because I think this is going to be setting ourselves up to be safe and COVID conscious throughout this. But it presents an interesting scenario basketball wise. What do you see as sort of the keys for preparing for one of these double headers or a 2-day series against another Big South team?
I think just the biggest challenge is going to be having enough players. We're going to start testing multiple times, 3 times a week next week prior to our first week of games. It's going to be a challenge to, for instance, the Big South. We're going to have 7 or 8 players to play the first night, and you have to worry about, for instance, if you come to a game with only 8 players that are healthy, and now you lose 1 or 2 before the next game, you're down to 6 players. So I think that's just the health and the welfare of our student athletes is going to be the toughest thing, because they're going to want to compete. They're going to want to play no matter how many players are there. So it's important and it's imperative that our medical staff and our coaches, that we, just like practice now, we've got to be careful that we don't push them too hard. So we're trying to balance, having scrimmage and competing against each other with just working on the fundamentals. And that's where the biggest challenge would be in these back-to-back games.
Thanks, Darren. Our final 2 questions will be from Kevin McMahon and then John Teetle. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, this one's for John Michael Wright. I just wanted to ask you, John, we have a lot of new guys coming to the team. We have 5 freshmen and then Lydell Elmore. Who are some of the freshmen and newcomers that have really impressed you in practice so far?
To be honest, pretty much all of them. They all come with that fire. They all come with heart. And all of my athletic, Lydell, he's a veteran, so he knows a lot about what to expect when it comes to college basketball. But even the freshmen, just even before we started practice, when they came in the summer, they started coming for our necks early. They didn't hold nothing back. And that's something that I respect, and that impressed me a lot. But just like the Carson name, like Jada House, Emil, Zachary, Alex, all of them, Bryson, all of them, they all come with a different game and a different flair to them that I think would really help us excel in the Big South.
I can vouch for that. They have challenged for playing time, and they will play a lot this year.
Thanks, Kevin. And we'll wrap up with our final question in the afternoon. John Teetle.
Hi, Coach. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, John. How you doing?
Good. Just wanted to know, and I missed the early part of the call, so if this is a repeat, I apologize. Hopefully not. Did you ever think we'd see Rick Pitino back in the sport, and are we going to see Iona on your schedule anytime soon?
Well, yeah, I knew Rick. He loves the game. He's a very competitive person, and yes, we'd love to play Iona. I think we'll try to work a deal there. We're playing a lot of teams from that area, and so as we improve and as we get better, and our talent level has really improved, I'm sure we'll see that happen soon. Playing Iona. We wish him the best. I know he'll do a great job there.
All right. Well, Coach John Michael Wright, we really appreciate your time today. That will conclude our basketball virtual media day. My thanks to all the coaches and all the student athletes who joined us today. Again,